All right, guys, we're going to look at current market conditions, right? We're going to kind of see where things are. We're going to evaluate the market. I'm going to show you guys even where I believe floor is. And I think it's a very obvious thing. I think everybody who knows assets in general, especially when it comes to crypto and the Bitcoin rainbow and the current market and all that good stuff, they understand that what I am saying is truth. I'll show you guys all the facts, all the pricing and everything like that. I'll show you guys kind of what I think ideally is a good possibility for the market. Keep in mind, inflation is a thing, guys. It is happening right now, right? If you go and buy your bacon, 10 times the price, guys. If you go and buy your bread, way higher in dollars, guys. If you go and buy food, commodities, oil changes, everything higher in price, taxes going up, right? What is all that? That's inflation, guys. And I don't see it really cooling down. The only way it's going to cool down is the Fed comes in and drops the APR, APY bomb, and then starts hitting people with, higher percentages. And, will that do anything ultimately? Yeah, it'll damage the economy as a whole, right? Again, a good reason to be in assets. So keep that in mind. We're going to move into the video in just a second, and we're going to kind of look at everything as a whole. All right, we'll see you guys in just a minute. All right, guys, let's get into the market, see what's going on, and check things out. All right, currently we are sitting at this low high, right? So basically we have our swing high of the market, and then we can look at it like our swing low, and then we have our swing low, and then we have our, what I think will be swing low. Now, can we swing from here? Sure we can. Can we dive deeper? Of course. Now, keep in mind that we are what I would consider at current bottom of market. Okay, biggest fear zone in the market. I'll show you kind of some information to support that as far as charts go. But basically, we had this move over here for Bitcoin. Basically, topped us up around 64, 65-ish K. And basically, then we had to break out over here, which brought us almost to 70K, right? Really big moves in the market. Currently, we've dropped down to now 35K, a lot of fear in the market. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, we're going to zero. No, there's no going to zero, guys. We found a solid support. That solid support has established itself. Current zone that we're holding at right now is this zone right here, right? Is there a possibility to hold this zone? Sure. And it's also the same zone right here, guys. So really solid support in this zone. Again, we broke through the zone last time, pulled back, and then took off from the zone. So from here, this is where the market kind of turned up. Now I am expecting a potential of a similar move for the market. Currently we are in a big M formation, but I think that this ends up flipping the other direction. And I'm going to show you kind of some information to support that. Outside of that, I would say like our next support is within this 30K zone. I think it is very likely we end up pulling back to the 30K zone and recovering the liquidity from all the way down here, right? Because they want to catch all these liquidity from these guys that initiated this market up. So they're going to pull back in here, I think, into the zone. And when they pull back into the zone, they're going to end up kind of playing the zone, right? So they could drop now, or they could end up playing this out and then drop it and then playing it down, right? The positive scenario that I'm seeing right here is that this big M formation for me, I think will end up turning it into what we would consider a W formation, right? So you're probably like, what do you mean by W formation? Well, a W formation ends up moving like this, right? So the market would move again into a, almost a scenario of a triple bottom, right? 1, 2, 3 bottoms. Now you're probably like, well, you don't know, it's just going to end. It's just going to end. The whole market as a whole, guys, has been setting on this bed of liquidity the entire time. We have not touched this liquidity yet. I'm almost questionable if we'll go below that liquidity zone at this point, but I do think that there is a possibility if we end cycle here that we do go into that liquidity zone, right? We end up catching into this liquidity, coming all the way down to 20K. But because we've held this liquidity so far, and holders don't seem to necessarily be selling off their positions, but instead accumulating their positions. And this is actually, you can look on Glassnode, it's a real thing. I think we're going to end up finding the same support we found over here in May, June, July. Selling here was basically selling the bottom, in my opinion. If you're saying, well, you just said 20K could be the bottom. Yeah, 20K could be the bottom of the current move, right? That doesn't mean that you're not selling bottom here. The difference between here and here looks big, but it's not that big when you think about things and where they can go for Bitcoin. I would say that this is a great DCA position. And I did come into the market myself with about 15% of my total portfolio, right? So I bought up, some alts, a good chunk of BTC and a good chunk of ETH in this zone. I will then come in again at 30K and I will drop in 20% more. Now, again, this is my own risk tolerance, right? So everybody has to assess their own risk tolerance to how much percentage they want to come into the market. So 15 here, 20% here. And from there, if we end up pulling into these zones, I will be basically about 85, 90% to the market. And then if we pull any lower than that, the rest of my money will go into the market anywhere from 15K and below. I will put everything I have into it, all in. It could go all the way down to 5K. I wouldn't care. These are my zones, guys. So those are the percentages I'll be kind of dialing into the market as we kind of see it make its price action moves. But if we make this W move, we could see a huge breakout for Bitcoin. Again, I think 70, 80K is kind of that ceiling, and we'll see that kind of stomp out right around that zone. And I'll show you some supporting evidence towards that for the current price action move. Right now, Bitcoin appears to be moving in waves, and so does the market, right? And even though we're getting a lot of news and bad news, good news, and this is what people are interpreting as, oh, well, it's because this and that, and the Fed, and the Fed is affecting things. Don't get me wrong. But the whole point is that the move here is pretty obvious, right? So we have our wave movement here that's kind of been followed the whole track, and now it's kind of moved from these smaller waves into these bigger waves, right? So I do think that, again, support is held around here. If we look at it on the weekly, guys, and we go and we cancel that out, that looks a lot more realistic, right? So weekly looks a lot cleaner, as we can see. Now, the other scenario is, too, that we end up kind of doing our wave, following through, coming up and rejecting around 40, guys. So if we reject around 40, I'm expecting a trend all the way down to 20 from there. I don't expect it to hold anymore if we start catching that. But again, there is good potential that we wave here, right? So until we grab all that liquidity. Now, that will make this floor weaker and, again, support my theory to break down. But at the same time, either one of these scenarios can play out and we hold this zone as a whole. What's the other scenario that can break down? Well, basically, the market continue to dive, right? And I think that nosedive stops around this zone. Again, all the way down to here, all the way up to here. So that'll be the zone that you'll be looking to really dial into the market. If it ends up pulling into those zones, I think that'll be bottom of market from there. So with all that being said, we can see the formation here is pretty obvious. You're selling here, you're selling the bottom, guys. Look how close, look how close. And even if you're like, well, it could dive all the way down here. Yeah, it could. Anything could happen, right? You take another 35% loss. But guess what? If we know Bitcoin can do 150, 200K, and you can say, well, they said that last time. It's definitely possible, guys. Look at growth from last cycle top to this cycle top, and then previous cycle top to that, right? Bitcoin does some pretty crazy price action movements. You guys got to stop thinking emotionally for the month or 2 month scenario and start thinking about the year, the 2, the 3, the 4, 5 year scenario, right? Best buying opportunity you're going to find in a lifetime in these zones, in my opinion. Because I tell you, in 2 years, you'll never come back to this price. Probably 2 to 3, maybe. Yeah, probably 2 to 3 years. I'll say you'll never come back to 35K again. So think about it like that when you're investing, and investing becomes a lot easier rather than being like, hey, my portfolio is down 40%, 50%. Yeah, it's down. Do you have money on the side? No? Then you didn't DCA out enough, right? You need to DCA out. All right, moving on to the next part. Let's get into total. So total here as a whole, guys. Look at total. Total is holding support here. Again, I expect total to stay in the zone. Total includes BTC, ETH, and all alts. If total breaks down, I'm looking for next support again to be around, right around in here. And if we break down market wise, to that 20K zone, we could see total come all the way down to 844. All right, moving on into total two. So total two does not include BTC, but does include ETH and alts. So total two, and we can see they're holding quite a bit of liquidity. We are holding very well in this top zone. If total two is to break down, we could break down to here, again, following Bitcoin, break down to here. And if the market ends, I can see total two breaking all the way down to here. That's ETH and alts. So if you imagine how much ETH will hold in liquidity versus alts are going to get wrecked. So make sure you're down into alts that you know are solid. That I wouldn't say that that's a meme coin. I would say that's a solid fundamental coin. You'd be like, well, these coins have all this hype. Yeah, they have all this hype. But if we go into a crypto bear market, you're done. Those coins are done. You're going to lose 99.9% of your value, I would say. But again, this is my own perspective. Moving into total three. Total three does not include Ethereum. It only includes alts themselves, guys. As you can see, they've been bleeding very heavily against Bitcoin. We had a downtrend right here. The rejection, it was very obvious that this rejection right here was going to happen. I did point this out in the Q&A with the FS group, like, hey, hitting rejection, expect a breakdown, and it burned down a lot harder than I thought it would, to be honest with you. But again, we'll be doing a similar following and movement to Bitcoin and BT and ETH. And, you know, in a bear market bottom, we can see that 323, but we could also see this all the way down to 208, guys. That's not much against how many thousands of altcoins are there. Spread that out on us. Tell me how much more liquidity they'll have. Not much. So keep that in mind when you guys are investing. Again, we're at bottom here on the daily. We're bouncing up. I think there's good potential to break out from that. If we look at it from the perspective of the weekly, we could very well come down a little more, which will bring us around that 542 billion. And that's basically us kind of bottoming out right about here, right? So we'd be hitting this zone, this zone, this zone, and all the way across. Good support right there for alts as a whole. And typically market end, it'll look something like this, right? So that'll be our bottom of market right there. All right, moving on to the next part, we're going to be looking at SPY. SPY is kind of the reason why everything pulled back. Again, we had a hefty top here, guys. We had a ceiling, right, which was our support into resistance. And basically the SPY had no choice but to pull back at that point. So it hit, came up short, and now it's making headroom so it can actually take off again. SPY pulling back into this support zone right in here. And I think there's good potential for the SPY to break down to this 427 zone. Can it come back more? Yes, of course. There's a good gap back here that needs to be filled. There's a good possibility it can come down to here. But if that happens, I would think that most assets will end as far as bull market scenarios. And we'll be looking at cycling out for crypto into kind of dialing in for the next cycle. And that's where I think that if we come back to these zones, that's definitely a good possibility. That'll be 398 for SPY, and that'll be crushing to a lot of assets as a whole. All right, moving on to the DXY. DXY as a whole, we were on a bullish trend for the DXY. DXY broke out a bullish trend, and now it came up, retest. Again, 1, 2, 3, I'm out. 3 tests to the top. I'm expecting a breakdown for SPY. It might find support right here on this support zone. You're probably like, where's that support zone? Right there. Very obvious support, right? Very obvious support. And then basically the SPY will break down to here, find support and break out, or the SPY will find support here, go up, reject, and come back down in these zones. Now, if the SPY starts breaking down, guys, I'm expecting the SPY to come all the way down to this trend right here. And that's going to be really good for assets, right? And that'll be if everything works out with the Fed. BTCD, as we can see, it's been following my pattern perfectly. I think there's a good possibility in this zone. We kind of see it pull back a little bit. And then and this will be basically Bitcoin playing sideways. We see that breakout. Again, 1, 2, 3 tests. We'll see if it breaks out. If it does break out on the daily, I think that's a very good possibility to go ahead and trend all the way up like we were talking about originally. And then we could see that rejection to that lower low. That does not mean that Bitcoin basically drains. What it means is that Bitcoin could be trending sideways and now it's altcoin season, right? So I'm expecting an explosion, which could be that slight movement to the upside, that 40K zone, like I said, rejection to the downside. And then we'll basically see that pullback for the market all the way down to here, or the BTCD dominant, sorry, not market. And that will pull back all the way down here to the bottom. And then that'll kind of take off from there, and that'll be cycle end. That's my thoughts. And you can see right here, it's kind of overworked here on the RSI. So we could see dominance definitely start to trend down to cool down into this 50 and then start to go bullish, right? For dominance, not Bitcoin in general. All right, guys, let's move into the VIX. We'll talk about the VIX. All right, with the VIX, guys, we're basically looking at a breakout for the VIX right here. VIX broke out very heavily here. VIX broke out very heavily here. And we can see right now the VIX is actually starting to break down. So a breakdown in the VIX. Now, this could be a short-lived breakdown, but it could also be a huge one. VIX is very overextended, right? VIX is rejecting right here on top of RSI on the 70, but it is in a bullish uptrend. So I do expect when it comes back to trend, it will blow up again. So if it's going to blow up again, be careful when it does do that. But again, this cool down could allow a lot of coins a relief rally and allow them to kind of pull out, right, and kind of push up. Next portion, we're going to move into BTC and basically BTC again. So again, these are the three scenarios I'm looking at. I'm looking for a breakout on the W formation, W, right? Or I am looking for a pull down to the 30, breakout to 40, rejection, 40K zone, 38, 40K. We see a rejection around that zone, and then we start diving, right? And then we hit a market bottom, and then the market starts its normal trend up, slow trend for the bear market. Again, bear markets are still profitable, guys. I don't know why people sit there and like, oh, it's not a bull run anymore, I'm gonna lose everything. No, I've already calculated it. Basically, if you would have bought top in the middle of 2023, you should be back in profit. All right, we're gonna move on to the next part, the BLX. All right, guys, BLX. Again, if you're selling here, you're selling the bottom, as we said, right? The bottom isn't that far from where we're at. And I'm not trying to laugh at anybody, but you know, if you're selling these zones, guys, you're making a big mistake, in my opinion. I think you should be DCAing in these positions and trying to hold them as a whole. I think that they're really good DCA positions from here down, right? Even though the market continues to trend down, you're still in a really good buy zone. So if you look here, basically, even though we have a higher low and we have a lower high here, a lower low here, and we have a low high here and a high here, what do we notice about everything right here? If you look at a support band, we're basically at a higher band here and we're at a lower band here. We're at a higher band here and a lower band here. So that's because the band always moves in an upward position. So when the market is moving proportionally indirectly against the current trend of the market, then your bands become lower from where you're supporting, right? So even though we're at a higher position here than we were over here, we're technically at a lower band here, which means we're closer to a floor. So this means that the likeliness of a breakout here is really good from this zone or even a little bit lower. Now, keep in mind, guys, if we look at this formation, right, we have this M, but this M can very well turn into a W. Even if we don't get a breakout, we could see the market start to turn up and come all the way up to top of zone right here, guys. Look, even if it doesn't break out to 150, 200K Bitcoin, there is a good possibility we see a wave movement. Again, remember what I told you guys last time, into the market moving like that, right? And over time, this could mean that we get a breakout. So does that mean that's going to happen on this wave? Not necessarily, but there's also a good probability, I think, that if the market does break out again, we do see that FOMO kick in, right? Now, I would sell majority of my positions right around this zone. I would not even assume, I wouldn't even assume 100K Bitcoin, 300K, all right? This would bring us around the 70 to 80K zone, right? I think if we end up breaking out there, I would wait for confirmation, a retest, and maybe enter with a little bit on the retest if it confirmed. And then when it breaks out, boom, guys, you're gone, right? You take everything you can get out at this higher position, guys. Okay. And this would follow with the inflation that is ensuing. You cannot deny the inflation that's going on right now in the market. All right. So if this plays out this way, there's a very good probability of this happening. Okay. It's not about being bullish, like I need to buy everything, but buying in this zone. Look, you are at the floor. Don't panic, sell here. Okay. This is your opportunity to buy. If you got $200, buy it with the $200. It could turn into thousands on the way up, right? I'm not financial advice. Obviously, I'm not telling you guys what to do with your money. I'm telling you what I'm doing, right? I'm taking the opportunity that's going on here. This is an opportunity, regardless of what anybody says or any type of fear mongering that goes on when it comes to assets, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Crypto in general is an asset, just like stocks and gold and houses and everything. They're all assets at the end of the day, right? They all have inherent value. They're all invested on because they are, good assets. People trust them, right? Trustworthy assets. Again, this is my overview of the market, guys. I've kind of given you multitudes of different scenarios and ideas, and I think you guys really should consider these and understand where we are in the market and understand the opportunity you have right now in the market while you're sitting there being scared because we're near a bottom, right? You're going to sell the bottom. That makes you the exit liquidity. Until next time, guys, thanks. Have a great evening.
I can't let them take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Oh, I can't let them take my soul. Nah, 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 no.